Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning Sirkin Ch2. This is to help you along with your textbook, the same one, Statistics for the Social Sciences by Sirkin. Okay, what we're getting into here is we're still laying the groundwork for research, so you understand what in the world's going on here, and also how to conduct your own research to see if a treatment is beneficial or not beneficial for your clients in the future. So what we have, he's mentioning, is qualitative data or categorical data. And this does not imply amounts. Go to page 35 of your Sirkin textbook for that definition. And then quantitative data. This is categories that are involved with amounts. We'll go into detail about that. Don't worry and start tripping up, okay? What this ties into is where you'll be talking and to gain more detail in future chapters about levels of measurement. But this is a good time to talk about them. They're also known as scale measurement. And during this chapter, Sirkin does go into them. From lowest to highest, we have, for example, you think of the little phrase, no oil in rivers. That's from, the lowest would be nominal, the next one up would be ordinal, then interval, then ratio. Now we're going to go into detail about this. Nominal, think naming. Ordinal, think ranking or order. Interval, it has no absolute zero. This is a type of numerical data. Think of example, an easy way to think of this as far as test scores or measurements like height, age, stuff like that. And ratio has an absolute zero, where the interval does not have an absolute zero. What in the world's an absolute zero? Well, a way to think about it is, for example, temperature has a measurement that's an absolute zero to help you with that in your brain, even though as we go along you'll see it in greater detail as far as how it applies to statistics for the social sciences. But just to hook it to a file you already have. So now let's go back to the beginning. Qualitative data or categorical data, this does not imply amounts. Well, what's that? Well, those are the two lowest ones would fit into there. Nominal, think naming. Go to page 38. I'm going to kind of like tie this together, page 38 and 39. Individual, as far as, let's say if we have individual nominal data type stuff, that would be like you're entering each one in your software as far as the name, Alan. He has a last name in the book called Jones. It mentions then his gender. His gender is male. You make it a little easier to look at. And his religion is Protestant. That would be a way of putting this individual data. That's what Sirkin's getting at there. And on page 39, he's saying grouped nominal data. What's that? That's like if you, for example, when you're looking at the gender, like he does, he has in the textbook, this is the same data you'll have in there. Gender is broken down male, female. And then the F, what's that mean? That's just like frequency. How many of the participants or individuals in the study are male? There's 4. How many are female? There's 6. And what in the world does this N mean? In this case, this lowercase italicized N designates the total number of people or participants or individuals in this, which is total number of 10, which would be 4 males plus 6 females equals 10, like 4 plus 6 equals 10. And then it goes into dichotomies. These are 2 category variables. That's in quotes on page 39. What's this about? Dichotomy, think of 2, like dilate 2. And here's an example of it, male and female, where it's in 2 categories. We have just male and female in the example here. So there's nominal, the naming level. And that can also include like blue eyes, brown eyes, Republican, Democrat, besides religion, stuff like that, like naming, like what type of group or where that individual lies, for example, here, male or female. The next one, think ordinal, think ranking, or its order. Look at page 41. Again, similar to this, we have individual, nominal data, and here we have individual, ordinal, which individual would be like, let's say we list each person individually. Like in the textbook, first it has the name Alan Jones, and then it lists him as being tallest. That would be like your individual ordinal. And then similar to where grouped nominal data, you have grouped ordinal data. Oh, yeah, same type of thing. But in this sense, it's ordinal. In the textbook, it has it listed as height. So notice this column has a title height, and this one has F equals. Again, F equals is frequency. How many participants fall into that type variable category type thing. So here we have height, very tall. There's 3 individuals that are very tall. Tall, 7, medium, 10, short, 6, very short, 4 individuals. And you add all those numbers up, 3 plus 7 plus 10 plus 6 plus 4 is 30. And that would also be the total number of participants in this particular research, whatever you're looking for as far as height. So that means 30. And there's also something called a Likert scale, which a Likert scale also is a common one that falls underneath ordinal. You've probably seen this a lot. Sirkin has this example, and there's strongly agree, agree, unsure, disagree, and strongly disagree. You see this a lot, like as far as, for example, at college, as you'll be looking at the professor, where you're reading your professor, you say, oh, did the professor integrate the stuff from the textbook and make it understandable for us? For example, okay, doesn't quite have that one on there, but to help you remember it. Then you would say something like strongly agree, or unsure. Well, I don't know. Maybe I was snoozing or something. I don't know if you did. Or I didn't read my book. But anyway, as I'm having some fun with this to help you remember. And then you can disagree, like, oh no, he pulled like something else out of the shelf, like, or he or she, like a totally different book. Or strongly disagree, like, wow, I don't even know what you're talking about. That was, on the syllabus, wasn't what we did. Wasn't the same book. So anyway, even though I'm being kind of like exaggerating there, just to help it soak in your brain, that's a Likert scale would fall under ordinal. And then you go on to, and that would be again qualitative data. Now we go into quantitative data. The textbook, page 35, categories that involve with amounts. Huh? Think like numbers, like, because here, example, interval is a little lower scale measurement than ratio. It has no absolute zero, where ratio has absolute zero. For example, when you're doing your counseling and stuff, interval, if you were to be involved, for example, IQ test, that would be interval data because there's no way to measure like zero IQ, so it doesn't have an absolute zero. So an IQ test, like Stanford Binet and stuff, that would be, as far as that would go underneath the interval data. And this is numerical, and also test scores. But if it's a test score where someone can have an absolute zero, well, that could be ratio data. That's why I have this, like, kind of, some of these kind of merging into both. But actually here, to like less confusion, let's break it off there. These can include demographics, variables, for example, age, income, education. And again, it depends if it has an absolute zero or not, whether it falls into ratio or interval. Now we go into grouped interval data. It's kind of similar to this idea that's going on here, but we're going to build on that, okay? Grouped interval data, it's also known as group level of measurement. Look at your Sirkin pages 50 to 51, because that's where I'm pulling these numbers from. There's two different ways of doing this. One's called closed-ended and one's called open-ended. What in the world's on that? Which open-ended is on page 52. But first, let's talk about the closed-ended. That has an upper and lower limit. Notice what he has here are scores. He mentions 25 to 29.9. This would be the end of the upper limit, the 29.9, and the end of the lower limit would be 10. Okay? Because notice he has the scores. Just to make it easy, let me draw some lines here. So you can see how this works. And again, F is frequency, how many had that score. So it's score, let's work from the bottom up. 10 to 14.9 or 6, 15 to 19.9 or 10, 20 to 24.9, 10, and 25 to 29.9 or 4 individuals, participants that had that score. And then we look under here, we have that same italicized lowercase n. My writing's not perfect, but you can look in your book, that's what that is. A lowercase italicized n, which equals 30. And that's saying that there are like 30 individuals. So this would be an example of a closed-ended, what Sirkin has in there, because notice it gives exact numbers, the beginning and end of this would be called the upper limit, the high score, and the lower limit, which has the low scores. And then over here, I don't know if my plant's kind of in the way here. Let me turn it a little bit. I kind of like plants anyway. Let's look here at page 52. We have open-ended. This class interval, which has the lower limit, for example, here has a limit to it. The upper one doesn't have a closed limit. Notice it says 25 and above. So basically, for something to be open-ended, one of the two ends, either the upper limit or the lower limit, has to be open. That means it gives, like this would say 25 and above, where the upper limit is open-ended. Where, for example, here, it would say you could go 49.9 below, okay? So let's say hypothetically they could get a negative, which I don't know if they can get a negative on a test, but let's just say for hypothetical, they would explain it. So if it's open-ended like page 52, notice again, it's 25 and above because it doesn't designate where the cutoff there is, where a top score would be. And then 20 to 24.9, and there's limits here. For the rest of them, 15 to 19.9, and 10 to 14.9, and 5 to 9.9, and 0 to 4.9. And again, the n equals, that's supposed to be 30, as you'll see in the textbook. So basically, that's what's going on somewhat in Chapter 2, but this is not conclusive and inclusive of all the definitions in the chapter, so please, please, read your textbook, go over your textbook, try to have fun with it to help with your memory and your recall and your cognition, try to enjoy it. So again, these are the basics for some more of the basics, Sirkin setting up your understanding about research.